Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to talk a little bit about time in regards to filmmaking, specifically independent filmmaking, because I think that a lot of the time we have unrealistic expectations for how long it takes to make a feature film. Aside from the principal photography, well, the pre-production, the writing of the script, and the principal photography, then you've got post-production, and then you've got distribution and finding a sales agent to help you find the correct distributors for your film. It actually takes a really long time, especially if you don't have a team of people that are willing to work for you, essentially for nothing, which a lot of us who are starting out we have to rely on people just volunteering their work because we don't have any money. In regards to our most famous filmmaker, Peter Jackson, it took 6 years for him to finish his first film, Bad Taste, and that was because of a few factors. One was that he could only shoot weekends because of everybody's availability and because he was working at the time at an advertising company, and he was using offcuts of the 35mm film stock to shoot his film on, so there would have been limitations about how much film he had, and there was a point where one of his main characters had a change in faith and became a reborn Christian, and with a very sort of fundamental perspective on Christianity, which isn't really contemporary Christian perspective. So Bad Taste, being a splatter film, didn't really fit in with his new spiritual path. So he had to really predominantly change the story in order to accommodate having a different main character. I think really he became the main character, where previously it was going to be the guy that you sort of see tied up in the cauldron, kind of in the soup pot, that was actually going to be the main character. So that took 6 years. 6 years is a long time to make a film, but to make an independent film, it's not really. It can take that much time just to get things happening. I'm trying to finish, well, I have pretty much finished a film called Valley of the Succubus, but there's the final VFX shots that I'm trying to work on, and it will take probably about a day for each shot to render. So I think that the shots are about 2 to 3 seconds, so at 24 frames per second, that's almost a month per shot, per second, to render out these animations that I'm making. So I know that with the 2 to 3 animations that I'm still looking at least 6 to 9 months of continuous rendering, because I don't have a lot of computers available, and I have to actually continue working with my computers on my other things and on my work that I get paid for. So, it was funny when it came, just before I came to shooting Valley of the Succubus, I was getting a lot of flack from family and friends because I was talking about how I was going to be a filmmaker, or how I was a filmmaker, and I wasn't really showing them anything because I couldn't. And there was a point where I was sitting with a friend and he said just that, like, you talk about it but you don't do it. And I turned to him and said, I don't even have a camera. And that was the reality of it. I didn't even have a camera to shoot my film on. I didn't have the equipment available. I had an idea, and I didn't even have a really well-worked script. So funnily enough, the momentum that came from that film that made it get made came from one of the actors. But a lot of actors fell off the radar. A lot of actors left the project. It was one actor, it was James Fletcher, that actually sort of got things going again, and it was my grandma at the time that bought me a camera so that I could actually shoot it. It was just one of the new DSLR 550s, the Canons, that could shoot high definition, and we shot that entire film on that that one camera. We did all the sound on another HD camera, but it didn't have optically the quality that I wanted. But we shot the whole film on a DSLR 550D Canon. So, and that was only because it was a new model that came out and dropped to the price where it was affordable. But the script wasn't ready. And the script wasn't ready as well because a lot of the main players had dropped out, and I had to rewrite the script to accommodate a smaller cast. So a lot of the time I was handing actors new pages every day. New pages where they had a lot more dialogue because I'd assimilated dialogue from one character into their character, and some of them weren't even comfortable with doing dialogue. So that made it kind of difficult for them and for me to direct them. But we got through it, and like I said, I'm at the point now where I'm just finishing the last VFX shots, and you will see Valley of the Succubus soon in one way or form. But there might be limitations there as well, like I might not be able to release it directly to everybody because I might want to put it into a film festival to try and, you know, win a competition to hopefully make some money back off it, because it, you know, cost me and my family about $5,000 all up to shoot that film, and I did it while I was on a sickness benefit, and I still bounce between being on a sickness benefit and working because there's just not enough work here, and I do actually have a medical condition that limits what I can do at 9 to 5, so it does slow me down quite a bit. But these aren't excuses, really, because again, it's still maybe the 6th year, and it took 6 years to do Bad Taste. So we finished shooting in early 2011. So now, naturally, it's coming to the point where it's ready to be released. But they almost are like retro films. After you've spent half a decade working on them, then you finally release them. So things change in 5 to 6 years. The political climate changes, the economic climate changes, technology changes. So if I had shot that in 2008, say, then, or 2007, then all of the footage that I would have shot would have been useless, because back then our current standard for high definition didn't exist. High definition was very limited, and now just about every device, every computer, every television is a high definition television, and every camera is, unless it's a webcam or one of the more limited GoPros, but even all of the new GoPros can do full HD, a lot of them at a high frame rate. So, I mean, that's how much the technology has changed from just in the time that I shot that film. But also when it comes to scripting, like I say, I would have liked... We shot the second draft, but the second draft was being written while I was shooting it. And we shot that in a really breakneck speed. We shot, like, principal photography for that would have been 2 weeks. Which was intense, and physically, for me, it was physically taxing. I was in a lot of pain while we were shooting it. And, you know, it made it hard for me to direct and enjoy the process of making the film, because there was just so much pressure and so much pain. But I mean, part of that is building your team, making sure you've got a strong team, and I had a really good small team, but you know, it takes a large team really to make a feature film. At the moment, I don't have enough money to forge ahead and shoot another film. I've got all the equipment though, which I never had before. So I've got lights, cameras, sound gear, everything I could possibly need to make a film. But I can't afford to pay for locations or costume, and more importantly, I can't afford to pay the cast. So at least for this next film that I shoot, it will have to be volunteers that come on board to shoot the film, unless I get crowdfunding to support me. And that's difficult as well. That takes time. Like, you know, you should run a fairly long crowdfunding crowdfunding campaign in order to build enough money to shoot a film. Ideally, what you need to be thinking about, what you need to be factoring, is not equipment hire or any of those things, those treats that we sort of want to have as filmmakers, or special effects or anything like that. Ideally, you want to raise enough money to feed your cast and crew first and foremost, which is really important, and then secondly, you want to be able to pay your actors and your crew. Even if it's a highly reduced rate because we're independent filmmakers and we just can't afford to pay top rate, that should be the end goal of crowdfunding. I want to talk about script writing in time, and why you should take time in your script writing. Obviously, like I said, if you really should be aiming to raise enough money to pay your cast and crew. Even if you're an independent filmmaker, you can't assume. When we start, we do short films, and we think, and we don't pay people a lot of the time for doing the short films, and I think that's okay, because you're not taking too much of their time. You might be taking like a week, or even hopefully just a few days of their time. But when you're shooting a feature film, the time requirements are a lot larger. You could be taking a month out of somebody's time, or at least, in the case of Bad Taste, 6 years of Sundays. That's a long time for a commitment, and a commitment like that really deserves reimbursement in some kind of sense. So this is why I'm hesitant to start just firing through into the next project. I want to complete my projects. I want to make sure that they're good, so that I continue to build my career rather than have films that aren't up to the standard that I want. But at the same time, I am aware that I'm not going to be able to achieve the quality that I want initially, because there isn't the kind of money, there isn't the kind of support network that you have from having a paid team of professionals behind you. And I mean, I have to do all of my editing, post-sound, sound engineering, I have to do the filming myself, and directing, producing all myself, and writing the film, and that's just the way it is. So I don't have the luxury of employing anybody, and I'm not willing to exploit anybody. So it's not just the big studios that exploit people. Independent filmmakers can exploit people too, even though it's kind of out of necessity. There's a point where you got to say, that's enough, and now I need to change the way in which I do things, and I'm at that stage myself now. So even if it's just a token payment, it's good to give people some money towards their time. Definitely a good idea to make sure that the catering is covered, that the food is covered. It's definitely important that you have enough money to submit the film to festivals after you've shot it. So all of those kind of things are probably going to come from crowdfunding or investors. It's unlikely to come from investors if you're new. It's going to come from crowdfunding, from family and friends. And again, that takes time, so you don't want to run a month crowdfunding campaign, because that's not enough time to build momentum. It's not enough time for people to know about your project. It puts a lot of pressure on you. If you're trying to raise all that kind of money in a month, then you really need to have a professional crowdfunding person, somebody who's done it before, who's also a really good social media manager, and has their own social network that they can tap into. So it's a big factor. And also, like I say, taking care on your scripts, not just shooting a first draft, is really important. I mean, people think, okay, I've finished the script. Well, no, you've finished the first draft, and if you're not willing to be self-critical, you can run into sort of problems down the line. So you can look at a first draft and you can go, okay, well, I'm happy with this. Well, if that person's not happy with it, then screw them. But essentially, you're not going to be doing yourself any service by doing that. You need to learn to look at a script with open eyes and address things that will be a problem later on. So, because it's going to save you money in the long term. Like if there's a scene that's extraneous, or if there's like, 5 to 6 pages of dialogue that don't drive the story forward, then they shouldn't be in the script. Okay, so I'm at a point now where I've written 4 3/4 scripts. I've got one script I need to finish off, and I've got another script that I'm just about to start. And once I finish this next script, then I'll have 6 feature film scripts, first drafts. So I know that I'm starting to get better as a writer, and I've only been writing for a short period of time. I've been filmmaking for a lot longer than I've been writing. Yeah, seriously, as a feature film maker, and it's completely different beast than writing a short film. Short film, you can skip a lot of the things that you need in story structuring to accommodate the short form. But when it comes to a feature film, it has to, well, it doesn't have to, but it should really follow the base structure, because there's certain highs and lows, there's certain peaks and beats that you have to hit for the audience, so that they understand it, so that they can process it in a way in which they, that is familiar to them when it comes to that form. So I'm not too worried about the fact that I'm not going to be shooting anything this year. I probably will be shooting something. It'll be interviews for the New Zealand Burlesque Festival documentary, just to finish that off, so that I can release it later this year. But I'm trying to pay off debts from previous years with other productions, other films that I've been doing, and also with promoting my films that are only really partially complete as well, and educating myself. So, say going to Cannes. Cannes was an excellent festival to go to because it made me realise how much I didn't know about filmmaking. So I understood that there was a lot technically that I understood about filmmaking, that I know about filmmaking, but then I couldn't see the greater picture. So by going to Cannes, I sort of realised, okay, this is a business and I have to think about it as a business, so that means I have to think about my film as a product rather than as a piece of art. It's not, we start off thinking we're artists, but we're craftspeople more than we're artists, and in order to be good at our craft, we have to refine our skill set, and we have to be aware, that we can't indulge, and we can't be egotistical or arrogant, and assume that because we are creative people and that we're better at certain things than other people, that doesn't mean that we're masters yet. And to be a truly successful filmmaker, you have to master the craft of filmmaking rather than indulge in the artistic sort of power of it. You have to control that power. So I'm taking time out to finish these scripts, to work on personal things with my health, which I've managed to achieve. I've made some really good progress when it comes to my health, and also to become a better writer, so that when I come to shoot the film, I'm not second guessing what I've written, that I know that everything that I get on film, as long as I follow my script, is going to be worthwhile, and that the product that I end up at the end of it, or when I'm sitting in the edit suite trying to edit it, is worth working on. Because maybe something works on the page but isn't going to work in the edit. And I think you'll find out pretty quickly if things aren't working when you start to shoot it, and when you start to edit it, you realise that this is the reason why people have to go back and reshoot things. that maybe you hadn't approached it with the right idea, or maybe it didn't fill that gap that you needed it to fill, or didn't hit that beat that you wanted, or it wasn't as climactic or anticlimactic as you were hoping it was going to be. So you need to add a little bit more meat to it. And also, writing is something that you get better at from practicing it. Storytelling is something, there are no natural storytellers. People are good storytellers because they tell stories all the time. It's like people who are good at telling jokes. They know those jokes inside out. Stand-up comedians are a good example. Though a lot of it seems unscripted, it's all scripted in their heads. And these are jokes that they've practiced again and again and again every night. It's not often that you'll get a comedian that has new material at every show. A lot of it's regurgitated. A lot of it is... It's like an album. So they come up with a certain amount of jokes and a certain amount of themes, and then they've practiced that on tour, and then at the end of the tour they have to reevaluate, and then they have to write new material because they can't tour the old stuff anymore. They can't go back to those venues and tell the same old jokes because people will be coming with an expectation of something new. Script writing is the same. So, I'm becoming a better... Storytelling is the same. I'm becoming a better scriptwriter by understanding the weaknesses that I have and working on the strengths and seeing what I can bring into it that's unique. So it'll be the same. And again, that takes time. So I'm taking most of this year as a writing year, and the last 3 years have been self-training years, where I've been learning things that will be advantageous to me as a business person, as a filmmaker who's a craftsperson, rather than as an artist. Because I can be an artist all I want until I die and not achieve anything worthwhile. And it's really important that I achieve something with what I'm doing for my own personal self-worth and for the industry and for my audience, or my future audience. I don't really have much of an audience at the moment. So yeah, things take time. Have faith in yourself. Give yourself space to grow. Don't be precious about a first draft. You should have a second draft, and before you film you should have a third or fourth draft, hopefully. You should be happy with that script. Maybe it will be that the script changes from when you're happy with it to shooting, because you sit down with director of photography and he says, look, I can't do things that way. I need this, this and this to shoot this. And we're very limited, so can we change the script? And you have to be open to that. If you're going to hand your film and your intellectual property over to an outside co-producer or a different production company who's offering you money, you're going to have to expect to sacrifice a lot of your creative control, like most of your creative control, like 90% of it is going to be them, maybe 99% of it. And after that, you could end up with something that you don't want to be involved in anymore. This has happened quite a few times in the industry. So I'd encourage you, rather than to go for the money and then realize afterwards that you've given up all of your creative control, is to find the money from other avenues, keep all of your creative control, but also learn to self-critique. Learn to take the time to do those new drafts, or go off and, like what I'm doing at the moment, write a few other films first, a few other short feature films first, scripts that is, and then come back to that first script that you really wanted to shoot. And by the time you've sort of learnt your craft more on those 3 or 4 other scripts, then it'll be really easy for you to see how you could fix the first one. And this already happened. Like, I had a certain amount of knowledge and skill sets when I first came into doing the first script, and then I realized what I couldn't do, because I didn't understand the process properly in the second script. And then by the third script, I knew what I had to do first before I could actually even put pen to paper. So it took 3 feature film scripts to get to the point where I was confident with moving on to the fourth one. And that takes a lot of time. Like, I'm writing quite quickly, so I can write my feature film first drafts in 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks. But it's not a finished script, and it might take another year to work those scripts to the point that I'm really confident with shooting them. Or it might take a year just to get the funding to shoot it. So, you know, time is important. Giving yourself time is important. And don't let people rush you ahead because they don't understand that things take time. Because they're not filmmakers. You're a filmmaker. You understand that things take time. You know it takes more time to edit a film than it does to shoot it. It's true, it does. It takes more time to write a film than it does for an actor to act it out. It's just the way it is. Good things take time. So take time. Don't beat up yourself. Don't get too depressed because everything isn't happening now. Keep on plodding away at it. And even when everybody else is saying to you, oh look, it's not going to happen, just ignore that. Okay? Have faith that it will happen, and keep on reevaluating what you've done.